was all right.
Hi, guys.
Welcome to episode 82 of the Brewgooders League of Beer and Comics. Colin's not with us tonight, but we'll chat about that in just a couple of moments. I'm Jeff. This is Andrew, and we are really honoured to be joined by Graham Manley this evening. So I've been a fan of Graham's work for a wee while. I'm a big old school DC Thompson, Dandy, and Beano fan. So I've been aware of Graham for a wee while. Also done some awesome work on alternative comics for the last 40 years, and done some amazing stuff in Judge Dredd and DC as well. So we're going to bring him on and chat about beer and comics. We had a really interesting conversation just before we came to air, which I'm still kind of bewildered with. When we have guests on the show, I'm used to them coming from all over the world, and we had Alex from California, and we had last year we had guests from all over the US and the UK, and then we've got Graham on, and he's from Penween, which is actually less than an hour's drive from where we live.
Just down the coast.
Yeah, totally. So we're going to bring Graham on. As always, just say hi and drop us messages if you've got anything you want to chat about. But here he is, the man, the myth. Good evening, Graham.
Good evening.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the very flattering introduction.
How are you doing? How's your 2021 going?
Well, God, that's a 2021. 2021 has been, what can I say? I mean, for me personally, it's been okay. I'm working. I live in a beautiful place. I mean, the last year has been pretty strange, it has to be said, for several reasons. Not just because of the COVID situation, but the political situation in the world generally, frankly.
Yeah, it's been a bit mad.
It's a bit of a mess, or has been. Doesn't look to be getting it. But anyway, I don't want to.
We've got an election next week. Not next week. We've got an election in a month's time, so that's going to make things a wee bit easier.
Well, yes, that's true.
So, yeah, thank you so much for joining us. It's quite I was absolutely when I reached out to you a couple of months ago and you messaged back saying you'd want to join us. I was absolutely over the moon.
Oh God! Well,
been a fan of your work for a long time, and what we really like to do in the show is chat about with our guests about where they've come from in terms of how they got started and things like that. So I was going to ask you, I discovered your work quite young. I was wondering, when you were a youngster, what were you reading? Who were you reading?
Well, basically, I grew up in the 1950s. I mean, this is like ancient history. I mean, comics. I read comics probably virtually all the time. Big comic of my childhood was really The Eagle, I have to say, and with Dan Dare. But I used to get loads of comics. I mean, we'd get the Dandy, the Topper, whatever. And very occasionally you'd get an American comic, but very rarely. I mean, you'd get Marvel Man, the original Marvel Man, the 50s British one, quite in Woolworths. One of my earliest memories actually is sitting on the beach reading a comic. And it was something that's probably not even that significant. It was Don Winslow of the Navy or something like that, which is an old American 40s sort of probably quite gung-ho sort of comic. So I read comics throughout my childhood. We didn't have TV at all. I read books as well, but we didn't have TV probably till the late 50s. And even then, it wasn't on all day. And so comics were a very big part of my early life. I remember seeing stuff that years later I would, recognize the artists who often weren't credited. Like somebody like Alex Toth used to draw Zorro in Mickey Mouse weekly comic, and just something about his style, those the lines and heavy areas of black and everything just appealed to me. And then there was, like, you get a British reprints of the Byrne Hogarth Tarzan strips, and again, those fantastic sort of snaky jungles and everything. Plus the British comics, as I say, like the Eagle, which, as I say, was probably the big one of my childhood, particularly Frank Hampton.
Yeah, I mean, the 50s, the Eagle was obviously the massive comic here in the 50s. 50s, I don't know how much of them you got over here. It was like a golden era for pulp sci-fi ones in America, with authors like, Robert Heinlein and Harry Harrison and stuff like that doing stuff. So it was, I think it was the first explosion in sci-fi comics in the 1950s. So.
Well, you're right. But a lot of them didn't come over here, actually.
Yeah,
but occasionally, I mean, I had a friend who had an American uncle, and I think he came over to visit and brought him a big load of comics, so we just sort of pour over these things, And I remember particularly Captain Marvel, the original Captain Marvel, that's now called Shazam.
We speak about this a lot because he's my absolute favourite superhero. The original,
really?
Billy Batson, Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
They've got to call him Shazam now for legal reasons because DC let the copyright lapse.
You have to as well for this. So
anyway, to carry on, like the Eagle sort of died a death, as you know, changing times and everything. But I remember the first sort of actual Marvel comics that I saw were Tales of Suspense and stuff like that, with Kirby and Ditko, and Stan Lee writing them. But I started reading them just about the time, just before they brought out Spider-Man. And so I was a bit older by then as well. And I can't remember what, I picked up a couple I'd been my late teens probably, and I was working and stuff. And I had bought something to read in my lunch hour, and I saw these comics, and it's an early copy of the Fantastic and the Thor. So I bought them, and then I got sort of hooked, basically.
Excellent.
And
I hope you still got them, because that could be a retirement for you.
Yeah,
I have. I've still got loads, actually. I've been thinking of. I have been thinking of selling them. Anyway, that's the story. So I got quite heavily into Marvel from about that period onwards. The first FF that I got was it was just when Doctor Doom was first introduced, or something around about then. But I think the novelty is that they were continuing stories, and the stories seemed to be much more interesting, because I've been reading a lot of science fiction films and stuff. I hadn't really been reading a lot of comics. So I definitely got into 60s Marvels. But I was obviously sort of a young adult rather than a kid. Apart from that, something else I really must mention in the comic was Mad. The original Mad,
Mad magazine.
The comic book original Mad didn't really come over to Britain, but
yeah.
Well, I find that quite fascinating.
Like Valentine Books brought out little paperback collections from the original Mad comic, and I remember buying those when I was about 13 or 14, and it's extraordinary. I just thought they were great, and I still do. A big influence on me, and the funny stuff,
Yeah.
I find it quite amazing that you're saying about like Mad and Marvel and things like that. Because normally when we have guests on, particularly British guests, that American, particularly in like the 50s and 60s and 70s, that American, those American comics aren't normally recognised as go-tos, particularly like we had David Pugh. Obviously we had David.
I know David Pugh.
Yeah, and he obviously he was very. It was Eagle was his baby when he was younger, to the point obviously that like he made it almost his life work to get a Dan Dare story.
I know, fantastic.
But
Fantastic.
I think, to my knowledge, you're possibly our first guest that I think has acknowledged the American comics as an influence. That's quite interesting. So yeah, go ahead, please go.
Oh, I say they definitely were. I mean, not obviously to the extent that probably the sort of DC Thompson stuff and the apart from Dan Dare, the other British stuff that I think as I say, the early Mads definitely had a big effect on me in when I was about 13 or 14. I just don't know why. I mean, they come from such a different cultural milieu. You know, they're New York Jewish, grew up in tenements and stuff, and this particular type of humour. But it just made me laugh, you know. And the drawing was absolutely.
I'm a wee bit younger, but I absolutely grew up on them as well. And I remember being fascinated by Spy versus Spy in particular, that they could get a whole story in with no dialogue that was so compelling and so funny. It was, I loved those growing up.
So, but as I say, you didn't get. I mean, really, when I started getting into Marvel, it's probably as I was a bit older. I wasn't a kid, but they were just, as I say, I'd read a lot of science fiction and stuff throughout my teens and things. So they seem to be going into really interesting territory. The Marvel comics at that time, as you know, it's sort of the classic period, isn't it? Now,
totally.
And Jack Kirby's artwork, of course, was just, pretty spectacular.
Jack Kirby was pretty spectacular, wasn't he? He's just like an idea machine, wasn't he? Of just titanic proportions.
For sure. I mean, when he started to do like collages and with bits of photographs and stuff like that was really, really effective. But also, something I also must mention, which is pretty obvious actually, is my discovery of the underground comics.
Of course.
Because I think I think I realised until I saw. I grew up in the south of England, right, and near Bournemouth, and I moved to London in the '60s, and I encountered the sort of emerging sort of underground sort of scene, the whole thing that was going on at the time. And I remember seeing the first underground comics I actually saw were probably either in International Times, which is an underground newspaper, or Oz magazine. And I think it was a sort of a bit of a revelation in one sense, in that I knew comics could do interesting stuff and tell great stories and things. And I suddenly thought, this is taking it to a whole new level. This is comics as social commentary, taboo busting, etc., etc. this is a whole new thing. So I very much felt, although I didn't actually do any work at that time, I was drawing and stuff, but I wasn't getting anything published. That was very much a big influence on me and my sort of way of thinking.
It's interesting you say that, because I was looking at some of your work earlier on in preparation for coming on here, and although it's not the same, I was struck there's a wee bit of Robert Crumb.
Well, yeah, I mean, I love Robert Crumb's work. I think he's brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Absolutely.
I actually met him once.
Did you?
Yeah, I spent an evening with him in Edinburgh. It must have been in the 80s. He came over.
I don't know if he's still going strong or not. I'm actually not sure.
He lives in France. He's been living there for quite a long time. They respect comic artists in France. And,
pay them well.
You quite like you. So, at what point in this? What point in your sort of discovery of comics and what it could do as an art form did you decide that was something you wanted to pursue for yourself?
Now it's interesting, really, because I didn't. It was never ever sort of something you could sort of. I certainly didn't think of as a potential career path. I don't think, it was never suggested to me at any point, and I know there's some artists that have been obviously very fortunate to get sort of almost like apprenticeships with people. Like I think Brian Bolland, I think, did work with Sidney Jordan and people like that who did another. I'm another big fan of his work as well, Jeff Hawke. I read that when I was a kid because my parents got the Daily Express, and but that was the only thing. That and Giles were the only things worth reading. So I love his work. Jeff Hawke, I think it's brilliant stuff. But anyway, sorry, what was the question?
When did you decide that you wanted to start producing work and try and get into comics yourself?
Yeah, well, funnily enough, it didn't really happen until after I'd moved up to Scotland. I was living in the countryside, and I had somebody sent me a copy of Brainstorm Comics, the first Brad and Talbot one, and I thought, amazing, people are doing stuff here. And then I saw in a shop in John Menzies or somewhere a magazine called Ali Sloper. I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
I haven't.
That one, no.
No.
Well, Ali Sloper was. Have you heard of a guy called Dennis Gifford?
Not off the top of my head, no.
Maybe Colin and
He was an early sort of. He was an early supporter of comics and collector of comics and publisher of stuff. He wrote some books about comics, and he wrote things about popular culture generally, films as well, I think. But anyway, he published this magazine called Ali Sloper, and Sloper was a Victorian comic cartoon character that had been in the newspaper, a sort of drunken slob, I think. And anyway, probably one of the earliest sort of British printed comics, anyway, with Ali Sloper. And that's why it was called Ali Sloper. And it was supposed to, its mission statement, if you like, was to publish sort of a mixture of new stuff and classic old stuff. And they were looking for submissions, and I thought, well, funnily enough, I'd actually done a 3 or 4 page comic strip, just for no particular reason, that I just wanted to, and with a view of possibly trying to get it published somewhere. So I sent it off, and it got accepted. And of course, when that happens the first time, it sort of blows your mind. You can't believe it. You see your own work in print. For a second, it looks good, and then it looks totally rubbish. And you see it next to other people's work, and you think, "My God, I've got to get better." But to actually get paid for something, the first time you send it in. So anyway, as a result of that, I got to involve there was stuff happening in different parts of the UK, and I was going to a shop in Edinburgh called the Science Fiction Bookshop, and I got to know the guy that ran it, and Rob King, and he did a mail order thing, and I did a couple. I'd done a couple of bits of artwork which he stuck on the wall and sold and things like that, and Rob and I chatted about various things, and he did a mail order service, as I say, and I did illustrations for the catalogue on the cover of his catalogue and stuff, and I think I did a sign for his shop and stuff. And we talked about the idea of trying to start a comic. So anyway, the result of this was a comic called Near Myths, which Rob published, and you may or may not know, it ran to 5 issues, and then it fizzled out. That was our attempt to sort of like what we were trying to do with it was sort of bridge a gap between the underground, and the mainstream to a certain extent, But and we made a lot of mistakes, of course, and back then it was all just literally cutting stuff up with scissors and sticking it down, and they're quite primitive, really, by today's standards. And but anyway, that put us in touch with people in other parts of the country that were doing stuff. There was like Hunt Emerson and the Arts Lab in Birmingham, and they organised a thing called CAC, Convention of Alternative Comics, which I went down to and met quite a few people like that. And generally, then I got asked to do something in Knockabout. I did a couple of things in that. And sorry, go on.
No, it's just, of course, like, yeah, I knew you'd done stuff like for them. I was going to ask you, like, at what point in your career did you consider you'd had your big break? Is this about now, or?
I'm still waiting for it, actually. I don't look at it like that, really, because, I mean, what happened was that I sort of got, after Near Myths folded, and I wasn't even, I was doing full-time jobs at that time. I wasn't doing comics as a full-time thing. I got offered the, I think it was, again, something to do with Brian Talbot, to do a thing called The Dice Man. I don't know if you heard of that.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, that was, again, we were talking earlier on about the people, that was with Pat Mills. Just not long before. Yeah.
Anyway, it's a bit of a nightmare, to be honest. I mean, no, I mean, really, I mean, the actual strip itself, because it was like a role-playing game, and but so there was no real narrative. The narrative was just totally fractured because you got to a certain point, and then the reader was given two options or whatever, you know, and so it was very. I think everybody. I don't think it was just me. I think everybody that worked on it found it really, really hard to sort of work out. Anyway, that wasn't to be honest, a very happy experience for me. And I sort of dropped out of comics for a few years, and I went to university as a mature student, and studied film and media studies and sociology. And after that, I came out and what am I going to do now? And I thought, well, I'd like to try and get back into doing artwork, really, because I don't really. There's nothing else I can do, and so I went on a thing called the Enterprise Allowance scheme, which they had in the 1980s under the Thatcher government, which was ironic because it was people like me and artists and musicians and comedians. The comedian Jeremy Hardy went on it. Anyway, well, on that bit, and they gave you so much money for a year to set up your own business. I didn't want to set up a business. I just wanted to work for myself. And so I did that. And after that, I started to get wee bits of work coming in. And initially, it was sort of, I did a lot of stuff like cartoons for training manuals and things like that. Yeah. I did a whole load of things for London buses. You know, pre-computers and like in the train, you know, how to deal with a passenger in a wheelchair and things like that. I do little cartoons for these things. And
you're a proper jobbing artist, basically. You were working.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah, and I find that fascinating because obviously I know that's far from the that's I imagine that if as an artist, a commercial comic artist, you have certain aims and goals when it comes to but I generally find it quite fascinating when we interview artists and they have they've done work for stepping back, quite random, in my opinion, quite random publications. We had obviously Dave McKean. He's done stuff for like PlayStation. Dave McKean did stuff for PlayStation and like and Heston Blumenthal and just so I think that's quite amazing that you've done stuff for things like the buses. I'm trying to think who else we had. We had we had an artist on who, as well as publishing his own work, did stuff for Diabetes Scotland, which was quite cool. Just again, like what you're saying, sort of manuals on how to deal with health issues and stuff like that.
Yes, that's right. I've done stuff like I did some not so long ago. Actually, I did some things that were for helping people, that had various sort of mental health problems. There's a series of sort of cartoons how to cope in different circumstances. I did that in collaboration with a friend of mine that works at DC Thompson's. Nothing to do with Thompson's. It was a private job. But I've done a whole load of different stuff over the years. But I mean, I do love comics, though. I do love doing comics. But I mean, you tend to do that. You tend to, as I say, I started off doing mostly those one-off cartoons. I always put a sort of division in my work, like work that I do for money, then my skills too, and work that I do that's more, maybe a bit more personal sort of thing, or where I'm got more freedom.
I think it's easier for artists these days than it probably was back then because of the rise of the sort of convention culture. If you've been published in some magazines and things like this, you can attend a lot of conventions and sell a lot of work and things like that. I don't know if you're big into the convention culture these days. I would imagine, you sort of make the rounds.
I haven't been to a convention for ages. They used to actually invite me in the 80s.
Yeah. I'm sure they still would,
But no, I haven't been to a convention for ages. But I'm sort of aware of it. But I mean, I think that funnily enough, one of the last ones I went to was actually in Dunfermline, at that park on the
Pitt and Keith, yeah.
There's a pavilion there.
Yeah, that's right. So
I just went with a friend. A friend was going. I wasn't. A friend was going. I said, "Do you fancy going along?" And I just went along and had a wander about and stuff.
Mm.
It's enjoyed it. It's
probably one of yours.
Yeah, sorry.
It's not what I mean. It's the local guy in Dunfermline. I'm sure if he knew that you lived in Dunfermline, he would be. I think you'll probably expect an email for next year if he's doing it again next year.
Well, I'm up there tomorrow, and actually,
let him know.
I need to collect my stuff tomorrow, and obviously, I'm just going to be like, "Did you know that Graham Manley stays in Pennyweed?" I wanted to ask you, are you still there, Graham?
Yeah.
Yeah, no worries. I thought that the line's been a bit funny on my end. So I was going to ask you about your time doing the Judge Dredd Megazine.
Oh, yeah.
And I was going to ask you how that kind of came about, because I think for a lot of our viewers and listeners, that's probably where we have quite a lot of we have quite a big listenership that are into 2000 AD. Obviously, the guys in 77 and stuff. Well, so I think they would be interested to hear about your experiences there.
Well, they're all good, really. It was down to Alan Grant originally. I don't know if you know. Do you know about the Money Hive conventions that he has had in the past?
No,
do you know what Money Hive is? It's in the Borders. Yeah. It's down there. Yeah. Well, Alan lives there, just outside there, and I was down at one of those, and it was quite a long time ago now. But I think that's why he sort of said to the. He asked me what I was doing and stuff like that, and I told him, and he said, "Oh, you should get into the magazine." Well, okay, and so he recommended me to the editor, who was a guy called Alan Barnes at the time, and he commissioned me to do that work, and which by and large was a pretty sort of good experience. It was good. I enjoyed doing stuff for the magazine. Funnily enough, the last thing I did for them, which I don't know whether you saw or not, it was in what was it called? Tales from the Black Museum.
Yeah.
I think that was the best thing I did for them, to be honest. But that was the last thing I did for them, actually.
That was. I think that was. I'm looking at. Obviously, I'm checking details here as I go along, but that was one of Simon Spurrier's first pieces for them. And
was it indeed? Well, see, I thought it was a really good script. I really liked it, and I think it was difficult because when you get to, I mean, as I say, the whole magazine experience was a good one for me, but when you join Judge Dredd, there is a certain weight of responsibility you feel on yourself, which can be inhibiting, and cause you to sort of like tighten up, which is not a good thing, really. Certainly on that one, the one that I did, the last one, I just I sort of cut loose, I think, and that's why I think it's my best one that I did. That's my personal opinion, anyway.
So you've got to make sure that a character like Judge Dredd, you've got to be respectful of it. You never know when you're going to run into John Wagner at a convention or something like that. You know what I mean?
I mean, obviously, I mean, as you know, I mean, there's loads of different artists have loads of different ways of drawing Judge Dredd, but they've all got the essential, all the basics there. I mean, say Mick McMahon's very different from, say, Brian Bolland, you know, in his depiction of Dredd and the eagle and everything. It's a bloody complicated uniform to draw, I tell you.
Yeah, I've tried it.
Getting that eagle so that it, you know, it works and everything.
It was great when they made the more recent movie, and it was a much simplified costume that they put on there. So. Yeah,
they left it off, didn't they? I mean, obviously so. I think really because I mean, well, I know it's everybody agrees on this, but the Stallone movie was pretty bloody awful, wasn't it?
Yeah, it wasn't a great movie.
No.
Well, he looked pretty cool though. I preferred the judge uniforms in the Stallone movie to the new one. And that's
to tell you the truth, it's such a long time since I've seen it. I really can't remember. Did he have the eagle on his shoulder? He did, didn't he?
They did that. It was a sort of slightly slimmed down again. It wasn't that massive thing, but
no.
It was closer to the comic rendition than the more recent one.
Oh no, but you're right though, Graham. It's a horrendous movie. Even down to they had one of the ABC Warriors in it as like a robot. I forgot about that until I rewatched it. But they had like a.
But the ABC Warrior was really well made.
It was really well made, but it was like. I don't know. It reminded me of when you did anyone watch the Wolverine Origins movie? Again, totally dreadful movie, but it's like they bring in a character and then completely butcher it. There was a Wolverine movie about 10 years ago where they had Deadpool in it, but it was Deadpool by name.
Oh no!
It's
no, I don't think I've seen it. Is it one? Now I've not seen the one where he's an old man.
Well, that one's good. That one is actually quite good.
Yeah. Worth watching. The last one I watched was Wolverine, and I didn't think it was very good. I don't think I even watched the whole thing, to be honest. You see, I stopped reading superhero comics. I don't really read superhero comics anymore. I may be the odd one if somebody gives me one or something, but or a one from a kid.
I've said this a few times recently. I'm exactly the same. I read mostly. Even though I'm in the comic shop, I read mostly sci-fi stories and fantasy stories. So it's mostly Image comics and things like that I'm reading now because there's not a lot of new stories. I think for superhero comics now, they're certainly the larger guys are repeating themselves a little bit.
In terms of accessibility, they're quite tricky now as well. Like I had a friend message me the other day saying that she really wanted to get into comics and she picked up a bunch of Marvel stuff, and she was like, she just said it was very bogged down in continuity and there was references to stuff she wasn't aware of, and she was like, Jeff, help me out here. Where do I go? How do I start this? And I was like, by not starting, I'll just bring you some stuff. It's fine.
I know. I mean, it must be so. There's tons of stuff that I have no idea about because, as I say, basically. The only time I read a superhero comic is my son will occasionally buy one, and then he'll pass it on to me, and I think, well, no, the only things I've been reading recently is I've been reading Saga. You know Saga?
Saga is excellent. It's one of the best. Keep going. It's probably the best.
Terrific stuff. And I'm actually working my way. I've finished now. Working my way through all of the Hellboy things,
Nice. Yeah.
and other than that, I've been buying in the past. I mean, this is always a thing for me, but 50s science fiction, and the EC reprints, and I've got quite a lot of those, and then there's these Yo books. Craig Yo, he does these reprints, a lot of old 50s horror comics, that non-EC stuff, and some of the stuff's good, some of the stuff's crap, but
I've spoken to Sickle. I love all these like amazing tales and tales of suspense and things like this. The reprints, the ones I've got are like 1970 or 80s British reprints of 1950s reprints of 1930s American comics and things like this. And the stories are written by E. Doc Smith and Robert Heinlein and Ray Bradbury and things like
science fiction writers.
Proper. Like you talked about reading a lot of science fiction back in the 50s and 60s and stuff like this. And I grew up on these American guys, Frank Herbert, and Robert Heinlein primarily. Yeah,
but I mean, I used to read stuff like Frederick Pohl and C.M. Kornbluth. Again, all the classics, like you were saying. That went through all that stuff, and kind of got into Michael Moorcock, and
I think he's you're still getting some of them coming out. The Eternal Warrior saga is now about 60 books or something like that.
I always liked the Jerry Cornelius ones. That weren't.
They were a child of their time. They were very much a 60s. Acid trip almost. They were
without a doubt. Yeah.
Yeah, I enjoyed them as well. Yeah.
What are you working on just now, Graham? What's your what are you doing just now in terms of, have you got any projects now?
I am working, but I'm afraid I can't tell you what it is. I can tell you,
it's a secret.
It's not a comic. It is a secret. I can tell you this. It's I'm doing. It's for a projected kids animated TV series, and it's I'm doing backgrounds and concept stuff, and some character, work and things like that. Not only actually any animation, but the title cards. But I can't read it, and it's being done under the aegis of a company called Jelly Bob Productions.
Okay.
But anyway, and I'm working in collaboration with a guy called Dr. Simpo, who's a friend and colleague of mine.
That's excellent. I'm sure once it's the cat's out of the bag, I'm sure we'll have a look at it.
But that's what's taking up my time at the moment.
That's really exciting.
It's really good, yeah. It's a nice thing to do. Other than that, I've done the only comics work. Oh God, that's another thing. Another thing I can't really show you. I can maybe.
I'm doing lots of stuff that you're not allowed to know.
Now, this is one of these things. I mean, okay, there's these two guys, right? They're DJs and electronic music producers. They Leeds based, and they wrote this sort of graphic novel, which goes along with an album of dance music. Basically, no words.
It's Daft Punk.
They're French, Andrew.
Are they? I didn't know. I'm not electronic music. Sorry, guys.
So anyway, I did the artwork for it, but it's like a. Hang on a minute.
Yeah, go get it. This is amazing.
I'm not even supposed to show anybody this because it's not out or anything.
There's hardly anybody watching this.
A quick flash.
Hold on. I'm going to drop out so that we can see it better.
That was a quick flick. The Lost. Excellent. When's this out?
I don't know. I have no idea.
Is it?
If ever.
Is it going to be?
Forward when you said that, and you're like, I don't know.
Is it going to be Kickstarted, or is it going to be, you know?
Oh, that's the CD, but you can't really see it. But anyway, I probably wasn't not supposed to show you that. What happened was that I was working on it. It's all hand done. You know, it's not digitally coloured or anything. All the colours done by hand. That's what they wanted. Basically, I was working on it for about a year, and they were, I think, 50 copies or something were produced or something for just before lockdown hit and the whole COVID thing, and so everything's just stopped, you know, so I don't know what's going to happen with it at all. Absolutely no idea. I'll find out at some point, but
I love how you pass it off as like an exclusive top secret thing. We're like, actually, just don't know.
I don't think you saw anything that you shouldn't have seen. It's okay.
No, that's really cool. That's really awesome. Actually,
so I was doing that, and then I did this other strip for there's a band, an American sort of punk band called Electric Frankenstein, and they were putting together a book of their. They've got a track record. They've done other stuff before. They put books of their posters and things like that out. You know, they were going to put a book of their lyrics out, and they'd asked lots of different artists to do a strip based on the lyrics of one of their songs, and I think that's being crowdfunded. I think it's being money's coming from the fans, I think. But again, that's sort of totally in abeyance, you know. So I've it's not that's just not come out. So I've done all this work, none of which can be seen.
Can be talked about.
Well,
I quite like this idea that in about 6 months' time, 6 months to a year, all this stuff will hopefully be out, and we can be like, oh, that's
well, it'll be nice. Yeah, I hope it does. I mean, it's quite interesting because just recently, in fact, somebody got in touch with me, and I saw some artwork that I did. Again, it was like a private commission, but that I did 30 years ago, and it's quite weird when you see something that you've done. You literally haven't seen it for 30 years, and you see it, and for a few seconds, it feels like seeing somebody else's work, you know. But then,
do you feel that your art style or your style has changed over that length of time?
Well, yeah, well, yes. I mean, the thing is, I think that I've got a natural style that I haven't had, but a lot of the time, I'd much prefer doing sort of like slightly caricatured, weird stuff to straight, realistic stuff. To be honest, and I think my natural style is much more the sort of weird, slightly weird humor style. I can do sort of realistic stuff, but it's so I think I have sort of, like a lot of people, probably use more than one style. You know, in one sense, I don't know whether whether they're all recognisable to other people across the board, sort of thing. But yeah, it has changed. Yeah, I mean, it's changed quite a lot actually. I think. But as I say, I think my natural default style is the sort of. I can show you the thing I did for the band.
please do.
Cool.
And I think this is pretty close to my the sort of thing that. Can you see that?
Yeah. Oh, super cool. Yeah. Well, does that drop out?
Oh yeah.
No way.
Got a bit of Frankenstein going on at the bottom there.
Yeah. Ooh. There we go. Did you ever see any of the big books that I did?
Any of the what side?
The big books. They were.
So you work with DC, the big book stuff, yeah?
Yeah, Paradox Press. It was an imprint for DC.
I was going to ask you about that. So I find that quite fascinating because obviously you were working for DC, one of the biggest comic companies in the world, but it was under one of their sort of lesser known imprints.
Yeah.
How did that come about, and what was that experience like?
Well, it was great actually. How it came about was at a comic convention in Glasgow, and a guy called Andy Helfer was there, and he was an editor at DC, and he was looking at stuff, and he saw some of the things that I'd done for Thompson's, and he commissioned me to do some work, and I did quite a lot of the big books. I did about a dozen of them, I think. I did strips in them. Mm-hmm. And Andy left, I think, and then his assistant, Bronwyn Taggart, took over. And again, I had a really good working relationship with her. Then I don't know what happened. It just sort of fizzled out. I think Paradox Press must have, they must have shut down that little bit or something. And Bronwyn, I think she went on to do other things. And I did get some more work. I did actually get a wee bit of work in more regular DC type comics, but not in the big league. It was, and it didn't, unfortunately. They were doing this thing called Toonami.
Yeah, aware of that.
It didn't. I don't. And it was basically adaptations based on some old Hanna-Barbera TV cartoons, like the Space Ghost and things like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so I did a couple of issues of that, and just did the pencils, and that was through Bronwyn as well. Bronwyn Taggart, who was an editor, who was the editor there at the time, and then she left, and the new editor, I don't know what happened, but they never didn't want me to do any more. So, but that was okay. That was quite good. It was quite reasonably well paid, and as I say, I was just doing the penciling. But unfortunately, I didn't really care for the inking. I thought the inking was a bit too heavy-handed, personally. Yeah.
Okay. How was that like then? Because obviously, I know when you start to work in as you call them, the big leagues, when you start to move up into, it is a much more.
I never did though. I never got any further than that.
But even then, what was that kind of process like? Because I know, obviously, on an independent level, you have quite a lot. You have a lot more like creative control. You have a lot more sort of control over the work and over the inks and stuff like that. What was that like in DC when you're kind of you're doing your role and then you're moving the work on to somebody else? How is that process?
Well, I'd always ink my own work prior to that. I'd never had somebody ink me, and as I say, I thought personally that the inking was a bit heavy-handed to my taste. I would. I don't actually mind in principle, though, but I mean, when I looked at it, I thought I could have done that better. That was my opinion, my ego. But working actually with, the actual people that I dealt with, which were, as I say, was Andy Helfer and Bronwyn Taggart. They were really nice. And they supplied you with the artboard. Which was brilliant and a really good artboard, really nice. Very, very nice surface, just great for brushwork, which was good.
That's quite good perk, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Because I actually had some left over and used it on other jobs.
Amazing.
But I don't know. I've never really aspired to particularly be a superhero artist as such. So, I didn't have that ambition to sort of go on and draw Batman or whatever. Not that I would refuse, probably. That's never
I was going to say, like,
You don't turn down Batman.
No, exactly.
Nobody wants to be Batman until they're off the
Anyways, I mean, anyway, from what I hear, things aren't looking too good in the comics world as far as DC is concerned, are they? And they've sacked loads of people.
They've sacked a lot of creators. They've sacked a lot of creators, and they're cutting down the number of books that they're putting out.
Yeah.
Which isn't necessarily a bad thing. You know, I do think Marvel sometimes put out too many books a month. But yeah, it's been run now very much as a money-making business rather than catering it all to fans. So there's a lot of behind the scenes going on, them ditching suppliers and making it harder for shops and things like this. Marvel have just jumped on that bandwagon today. They're severing ties, well, almost severing ties with the big distributor as well. So it's going to be a massive headache owning a comic shop.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a business. Let's face it. I mean, there used to be sort of idea somehow that it was somehow sort of. I know, there was probably like better money and stuff like that, but somehow it was somehow sort of cooler or something to be working for one of these big companies and stuff, that they had more credibility in some respect, But I think it's nonsense, really. I mean,
I think since the Image guys split off back in the sort of 1990s, since the Image guys all split off in the 1990s and went their own way, and forged a massive company where it's all content owner created content and owner owned. Artists.
Yes, I mean, I know there was a whole thing that happened as well with was it Tundra? Was that was? Have you ever heard of Tundra?
Yeah, it was like a. I'm going to say it was like a Kazar type thing, was it? Am I thinking of the same thing?
No, I know what you're thinking of. No, this was like a comics group, like.
Yeah. I think
I think it was something to do with. Oh God, I can't remember now. Was it something? Not something to do with Kevin Eastman or something like that? They wanted to start this comics line, and it never happened anyway.
Did they do a lot of historical stuff? It was a lot of Second World War.
No, not as far as I know. But I thought they were certainly were going to do creator owned stuff. I know that because they were interested in mono ice strips, but it never happened. I think the company either
I don't think it lasted very long. Certainly, it's not something I've seen in the previews magazine for the last eight years. So they're no, if they were, they're not going strong.
But anyway, I was talking earlier on about when I started out, and you were asking about when I started out. I used to do these comics workshops where I would go to. Quite often they were sponsored by a local council or something. Where I'd go and get a bunch of kids and get them to draw their own comics, basically. Give them a bit of a talk at first, and then just let them get on with it. And they used to produce some amazing stuff. But this woman that I knew that worked for Dundee Council said to me, "Oh, you should go to the Dandy and stuff, and go to DC Thompson's, because I've never actually been to them. Always a bit standoffish about Thompson's, the company, etc. But anyway, I thought, God, well, I'm doing artwork, I'll give it a shot. So I went in and I met a guy called Maurice Heggie, who was editor of the Dandy at that time, and started doing work for them, and did quite a bit over the years. And Maurice was a good guy. Maurice Heggie, good editor. Good
we had Callum Laird on last year.
Pardon?
We had Callum Laird on last year. We had Callum Laird on last year, who was editor.
Oh yeah, I don't.
He's a.
I don't actually know him, I don't think. But Morris was editor of the Dandy for years, and there was a guy called Ewan Kerr that was editor of the Beano at that time. I did one thing for the Beano, I think, or the Beano book anyway.
So what did you do? What did you tell us?
I did the Backstreet Super Kids. What did I do in the Dandy? I did loads of stuff in the Dandy, but all sorts of different stuff. I don't think they quite knew what to do with me at Thompson's. I mean, they gave me work, but I don't think they didn't quite know to place me because I didn't draw the way they, most of their people. I didn't copy any of those or emulate any of those styles for the most part, So what I tended to get was the sort of strange off-the-wall jobs and stuff in the annuals, like a full-color, adventure strip in the annuals, which was quite good. Quite enjoyed doing those.
I tried to figure this out before I asked you. Because when I was reading up on your stuff, and I was trying to work out your bibliography, and one of my favourite strips in the Dandy and the Beano annuals was there was an ongoing strip where there was a wee boy who had a remote control army.
Oh, that's General Jumbo.
General Jumbo. Were you involved in him at all?
No, I wasn't. But I tell you who it was. There was I think Tony O'Donnell did a General Jumbo. Do you know Tony O'Donnell?
I know his work. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Tony, I've known Tony since Near Myths days, because that's when we first met. Because him and Grant Morrison sort of basically came along about the same time and got involved with Near Myths. Mm-hmm. But no, I didn't do General Jumbo, but I did that sort of thing, But usually mine were one-off stories about, some sort of vaguely science fiction-y. Well, the guy that used to write most of them, Dan Nagaki, wrote good stuff. And he was a big Doctor Who fan, so you had sort of Doctor Who type things and time travel and what have you. Vampire, full horror, bit vampires. Actually, I used to get apparently quite a few complaints about stuff that I'd drawn in the DC Thompsons.
That's amazing. I would be proud of that in hindsight.
Well, basically what happened, I think it's great, because nothing was really outrageous. I mean, I think I did this strip one time, and it's people with melting faces. They were made of wax, and some parent, complained, and the editor at the time said, "I'll just file that," and screwed it into a ball and threw it in the
Incredible.
So
Incredible.
It's nice to be complained about, I think.
I think there must be a professional level. Just there's a point where when complaints don't really have any merit. I don't know if that's the right thing to say.
Well,
everybody has merit.
They weren't complaining about the drawing or anything, the artwork. They were complaining about the content and the way it was depicted. No, I don't think, I mean, it's not as if we'd drawn anything, done anything really, really bad.
No.
How many folk complained about Raiders of the Lost Ark when all their faces melted?
Well, I don't know. Did people complain?
I think to the point it was edited out of the recent showings.
Don't they show a version of it where it's edited?
Yeah.
And you don't get the melting faces. In case
the one that was shown on the BBC was the edited version on the BBC, and they had a lot of complaints because it was the edited version. Because it was shown after 9 o'clock.
I hate when the BBC do that, and it's quite annoying. I was watching one of my favourite, completely because Colin's not here and he can't tell me to stop going on tangents, right? One of my favourite films ever is the original Men in Black movie, and there's a really awesome scene where he's in the elevator with Will Smith's in the elevator with Tommy Lee Jones, and he's like, right, I have to. He says something like, "I have to be your partner because you recognise my skills," and Tommy Lee Jones is like, "Yeah, that's absolutely fine, man, but about your skills from this moment on, they mean precisely dick." And then he opens the door, and then you see all the aliens and stuff. I just think it's a really quality line, but the BBC never
completely cut it.
They completely cut it, and I'm like, oh, it's not that offensive, surely. It's just a nice wee line. That's amazing that you got complained about when you worked for.
I don't know how many times it happened, but it definitely happened. more than once. But I remember having an argument with a guy. Well, not really an argument, more a discussion with an editor. I won't name him. Of the time at DC Thompson's, and he couldn't. What had happened was that they'd got the rights. There were these books, and they were aimed at kids of about 11, 12, that sort of age. They're called Point Horror or something like that.
Oh,
yeah, I know the ones.
Do you remember them?
I was target audience, I think, right at the time.
Oh, really? So there were horror stories aimed at kids, basically, weren't they? So they obviously weren't that horrific, but maybe just a little bit scary. And Thompson's at one point, I think, got the right to adapt those into comics. And so I got given the job to do a tryout of one. And Dan did the writing and I did the artwork. And then the guy that was supposedly going to be editing this thing, said, I think this is a bit too frightening for children. I said, do you know what kids are watching these days? Have you really... and I'm not even talking about the really extreme stuff, anyway, I said, children like to have a little scare, they enjoy it, it's fun. But he just couldn't seem to understand it. He was so frightened. That was part of the trouble. I think it's changed a bit now because it's new people, but it was very much an attitude of, we can't do that. There are various sort of restrictions on things you weren't allowed to depict or weren't supposed to depict. They didn't like broken glass.
I imagine that could have been relatively. If they'd gone ahead with that, as a kid, early 90s, who was reading the R.L. Stein, he wrote a lot of point horrors, and obviously then went from point horror to writing Goosebumps and became like a billionaire off the street.
Yeah, I know.
So I think that early 90s. I remember Nickelodeon coming out in the BBC in the UK when 1992, 93, when Sky did like an expansion, and they had that Are You Afraid of the Dark and stuff. That sort of horror programming aimed at children was massive. I think.
Yeah, I know.
And if there was a point it would have been huge.
It's like I said, kids like a wee scare. Kids,
absolutely,
grow up and liking that sort of thing. And the point horrors weren't they weren't hugely scary. I think they were, they were a couple of steps up from a Hardy Boys type thing.
Yeah,
that was it. It was always about the kids having to. There was the whole thing about the adults. There was a horrible thing happening. It was kind of thematic. Every book ever recalls. It was like something horrible happened. The adults were either unaware or uninvolved or were directly involved in a way that meant that they couldn't quite see what the issue was, and the children had to problem solve and deal with it. And they were massively they were very engaging books, but they were also massively, like, I read them and thought, like, I could take on the world. Kids. It was about kids saving the day because the adults couldn't. In the face of adversity and horror, it was great.
Yeah, absolutely right. I agree with you. I mean,
Thompson missed the trick there, I think.
The way you described that there, it was it could have been Stephen King's It, but they were obviously nothing like that level of scares. They were generally they were like 150, 200 pages. They were just young adult books, so that's what they were aimed at.
Yes, I know, and you're right. They could have been onto a winner. I mean, the organisation was so inherently conservative at that time that, apart from the odd individual editor that was prepared to take a chance, like Morris, for example, he was. It was very, just very restrictive. They just. It didn't really affect me personally. I mean, it didn't. I mean, again, there was another thing. I did this funny story. It was about this called Professor Mad Professor, and there was a scene in it where he's supposed to be falling into a pit with crocodiles, and I drew the scene with him sort of like, the sort of almost like he's running in the air, and the crocodile's just sort of got hold of and ripped his trouser leg, and it's got like the trouser leg in the crocodile's teeth, sort of thing. And I was told that was unacceptable. That you shouldn't, that the crocodile's teeth should have no contact with any part of the guy, not even his clothes,
Yes, yeah.
And
is that all tied up to the comics code then? Is that all part of in the? I don't know.
The comics code was very specific things that it was against.
Only American. We didn't have comics code.
Yeah.
I know we had
the.
What was the British equivalent then? Was there a British equivalent? Video nasty?
It's very interesting, actually. We did have some. I mean, there was a thing because I think there was even a prosecution about it. But it largely, most of that stuff, apart from the things that happened much later with action and stuff, in the 70s, wasn't it?
My heart is with the action. My heart is with action comics in the 70s, man. That's like that's I love it.
So that caused a stir, didn't it? I mean, the tabloids, had articles about it and stuff, didn't they?
Yeah.
Things like they were deliberate knockoffs of what was happening in media, wasn't it? So like obviously Hookjaw's like they were blatantly ripping.
That's right, exactly, yeah.
And every week you mention that comic. Every week you mention that.
I'll continue to do it until our podcast stops existing, because Hookjaw deserves a mention every week.
Every single week.
But the comics code was an American thing, really, and it was in a response to comics like the horror comics of the 50s.
Yeah, it was the EC comics from the 1950s about.
It was,
and
all the various imitators.
Nudity and horrors and things like that.
Yeah, but they missed the point. They didn't understand them. I love EC personally. Some of my favourite comics. But the irony of it is that in America it was the right wing that was largely down on the comics. In the UK it was the left. It was the they saw
like the Toonami state sort of thing.
They saw sort of pernicious examples of sort of decadent American capitalism sort of thing. So they just didn't understand them. They just didn't understand them. It's as simple as that.
But God, by and large, they leave comics alone these days. They tend to concentrate their complaints on video games now.
They do.
Comics get under the radar.
They do. Yeah, I mean it's the same old story. Blaming comics for juvenile delinquency, blaming video nasties for this, that. And now it's, as you say, it's games and stuff.
A great thing a couple of years ago about, it was the Call of Duty, and they wanted it like it was an 18 at the time, but they wanted it, changed so that you couldn't even buy it up to 18. And there was a big furor because in America you're allowed to serve in the army and actually shoot people. But not play a game where you're doing it at 17. So it's just.
I remember when my Call of Duty story is when I first started teaching. Call of Duty Black Ops 2, I want to say, came out, and I remember the Thursday morning that came out, I had no boys in any of my classes. And I was like, we're actually walking into a classroom that was genuinely like 10 girls and one boy, and being like, am I missing something? And one of the wee girls has got her phone out and she's like, all the boys are at home playing Black Ops, sir. And like, they literally, I'd never really experienced anything like it. I think we've maybe moved on as a culture and that doesn't kind of happen anymore. But
yes. Well,
they put them out on a Friday, late on a Friday now. They go out midnight on a Friday so they can play them at the weekends.
Do you have anybody that wants to find out more about you and your work? Where can they go? Like what?
Well, I've got a public Facebook page. Other than that, I don't know.
That's fine. That's totally fine. So we just search Graham Manley on Facebook.
I think so. Yeah, and I've got a.
I think we're all doing it just now, so I can put the link up. Have you got anything else where maybe people can buy some of your work or see some of your work?
Well, not at the moment. No, I don't have a website. But I'm thinking about, getting one together at some point. But I've been thinking about it for years. Never actually done it. Probably need somebody to come and do it for me. Probably that's the thing, because I can interact with technology to a certain extent, but I mean I'm not. I don't use it in my work at all or anything like that. So I'm just a normal user of computer technology. I'm not a.
I've never found websites worthwhile. I've tried to do one for the shop multiple times, but when you're in competition as a shop, you're in competition with like Amazon and things like this. It's very rarely worth it. But as an artist, there's things like Etsy and things like that which I think require minimal technical knowledge to get set up.
I use the big cartel I use for my comic, and it's really easy. Like, and all you have to
What is it you use? Sorry.
I use Big Cartel, so like you could I think it's a bit like Etsy. It's the one like the one you mentioned. So you can go down the line of setting up your own .com, or you can just have the @bigcartel.com attachment, and it's fine. I think a lot of like relatively established folk use the same thing now. It's quite good. Yeah, you only. I'll send you the link later on, Graham. It's a pretty cool wee website.
Do you want to see the studio, by the way? That's
yes,
where we are.
Could do a tour, yeah.
We've never had a tour before.
Right, that's one wall.
All the bookcases.
Well, there's more than one bookcase.
It's a lot of bookcases.
I had to make a book when we did the stuff.
My drawing board.
Nice.
Ah, nice.
That's well smart.
More bookcases. Oops. There's a window, but
looks like you're up at the top of the house. Are you? You're up in the in the eaves.
It's absolutely great. It makes a brilliant studio. These houses were built with the idea that they'd probably be lived in by fishermen, and so these attics are called fishermen's garrets, but they're big. I mean, they're not all walled like this normally. When we moved in here, it was like all open rafters and everything, but it's really quite big, and it
looks absolutely perfect. Yeah,
it's great. It is absolutely perfect. I mean, you can make a noise up here and nobody can hear it. They can put music on really loud. Or
that's definitely sound like I live in quite a wee house, and genuinely, like when me and my wife have been looking at getting new places, she's like, "Can you stop looking at new houses with an eye to where could I set up a bookshelf for my podcast?" Like.
So
I've got this wee room here. I think you can see it. But
I'm so jealous. Both of you. I'm jealous of you. I'm in my kitchen.
Yeah, I can touch both walls going this way.
Are you in Gifford now?
6 foot. I'm in Rosyth.
Oh yes, so that's right.
I'm about 6 foot by about 8 feet.
Okay,
it's just a tiny wee study, but I can get all my books in.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm thinking you, but
oh yeah.
There are books everywhere.
We did
likewise, as you can see.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And it's
same up here.
Yeah, it's science fiction and fantasy that I've been buying for 35 years of a collection. I swear, I'm looking at it was a blur as you went past, but I was like, look at the bookcases. Oh, thinking how much good stuff there'll be there. Book envy.
There's quite a lot. There's a lot of good stuff up there.
See your annuals. It's your annuals just over your shoulder. That's
right. That's old. That's mostly old British stuff up to there, and then that's big books that I'm in. That's a whole mixture of stuff there. Unusual things that probably things like the keys I bought years ago before you could actually get like proper Conan, Barry Smith Conan's in sort of paperback form.
Yeah, that's smart.
Oh, beautiful, yeah.
And then that goes along. That's also on there. Science fiction, fantasy, horror, movies, stuff to do with film. What comics here? Tintin, Asterix, a lot of European stuff down that end, Moebius and things. A whole load of Mad and original Mad, you know, the Weird Science, and then a whole select American horror, Dan Dare. Oh God, I've got loads of stuff up here.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so jealous, man.
Yeah, me too.
Sometime.
So you before we went to air, you chatted to us a wee bit about how you're not a beer drinker, but you have taken the liberty of purchasing a few for this evening. Usually around about nowish, or towards the end of an interview, we do blather about the beers we're drinking. I don't know if you want to join us for that.
Okay, why not?
Andrew,
I don't know what this is. Actually, this wasn't really even bought for me. It's John Smith's.
Oh, John Smith's is a classic.
Yeah, it's a classic.
Oh, well, that's okay then. Actually, it was a friend of mine was coming up to visit, and he's really I mean, I drink beer. I'm not, anti-beer or anything. I'm just not a big beer drinker. So I'm not a connoisseur, as you possibly are. But this was actually bought for a friend that was coming up, and I found it in the fridge, and I thought, oh, that's good. I've got some.
I can say to that. I'm two things exactly as you said. Now I'm a big beer drinker, and I'm also a big beer drinker. So, unfortunately, that's just the thing it sometimes does to you. So I'm on Buxton Brewery this evening, Citra IPA.
Right. Okay. This is an IPA as well, I think. Exclusive. Podcast. Yeah.
Oh,
anyway, it's quite pleasant actually. But there's a St Andrews. I actually was gonna get something from the St Andrews Brewing Company, which is obviously a local one because it's just up the road. But I forgot actually. I was working today, and when I suddenly realised about it, that this was happening tonight and everything, the shop was shut, so too late.
Oh.
They do a really good. We had a
I did have this in the fridge. Pardon?
We had a place in Dunfermline. It's about to reopen, but it closed. It's reopening under new management. But they used to sell St Andrews Brewery, the St Andrews Brewing Company. They've got an IPA called, I think it's called Yippee IPA.
Right.
Yeah, it's really like, that was one of my favourite beers a couple of years back. Me and Colin, when we first started the podcast, spent a lot of time in this pub in Dunfermline called the Drouthy Fox, because they used to have St Andrews brewing stuff. They're a really good brewery actually, and one that have invited us up sort of post COVID. So I grabbed this today. This is a brewery very, very local to me. I can probably walk to this place in about 20 minutes. Yeah. Seven Kings Brewery.
I didn't even know they brewed their own stuff. That's the place at the bottom of the high street.
Similar names.
It's not attached to that.
So we met these guys last year, not last year, literally the week before our first podcast. Me and Colin were at a weird. It wasn't a weird thing. We were both invited separately to the opening of a restaurant in Dunfermline. My wife shops next door to the place that was opening, and Colin's daughter was one of the waitresses. So we both got invited separately to the same event, and we were both sitting there having just decided that we were going to do this beer podcast, and we're standing at this pop-up bar that the guys from Seven Kings Brewery had set up, and we're blathering to them, and we've kept in touch ever since. They're based in Took, just in Dunfermline, Took, Dundee Estate, and I think they've gone kind of quiet over lockdown, but they've started brewing again. So I picked that up this week because I was like, they've always been really good to the podcast. So it's a Ruby IPA. the whole thing is, like you say, 7 kings. So in Dunfermline, 7 kings of Scotland are buried here, and each of the beers is supposed to be each of the beers that this brewery are going to put out is going to be a reference to each of those kings. So this is a reference to, if I remember correctly, this beer is named after is named for Malcolm Canmore, and who was King's Speed. Yeah, there's a whole that's there. I can't even read it anymore because my eyes are going blurry. It's too late. But there's a whole.
I can see that.
Each of the beers have a story, and this one's about Malcolm Canmore and one of his long-standing enemies. So that's pretty cool. Just nice beer, really. It's a ruby IPA, and just really very, very pleasant.
Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, will we move on to the spoiler bit of the podcast?
Whatever.
We've not done what are you reading yet.
Oh yeah, what are you reading? Yeah, absolutely, Andrew. You talk us through what you're reading.
I'm reading a couple of books just now. There's no really very big releases this week. The biggest one probably is Marvel's gotten hold of Alien, so we've got some multiple Alien covers.
Oh, cool.
Going in this week, and also a relaunch of Carnage because they're thinking that I've got a really beautiful Carnage cover.
Yeah, that is neat.
So these are the big sellers this week. The one I'm reading this week is I'm actually reading a book series at the moment, and it's also a comic series, and it's a brilliant way they're doing it. The comics are completely separate from the books. They're in the same world and the same characters, but they take place between the books. And it's a brilliant way of doing it. You might have heard of the guy called Ben Aronovich, and it's called Rivers.
I have heard of him. Yeah.
This is going to be a TV show coming up soon.
Oh, absolutely! It's a classic.
Oh, I've heard of that. Yeah, I have heard of it.
So they do the books, and then they started putting out these comics, sort of all set between the books, so you can keep up with the characters and things like that between them when the books are coming out.
Okay.
So that's what I'm reading at the moment.
Right.
Working my way through the novels on my Kindle and getting physical copies of the comics because
they're better.
I own a comic shop and I can. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, I would much rather have a physical comic than a.
And the benefit, obviously, of owning a comic shop is when I want something, I can buy it at cost.
Are you up that road that comes off of like 40 High Street? There's been a sort of game shop and computer shop for quite a long time.
No, I think there was. I think the one you're talking about was one called.
These days,
there was one called Kingdom of Adventure a few years ago, which was up a road just off the high street, going straight up.
Yeah,
I'm on the high street, so you carry down the high street.
Oh, really?
As it curls towards at the bottom end, it's called the Merchants Quarter, which is lots of small shops and cafes and things like this.
Is that I'm down there. Is that the end that's got like the arcade in it?
No, the arcade's right at the other end. That's at the
other end. So you're talking about
pretty much across from the indoor market.
The east end.
I'm across from the old cinema. The King's Theatre.
Yeah. I remember going to the cinema in Kirkcaldy.
It was the Odeon Cinema. It was, yes. I'm right opposite. Basically, right opposite. My door's right opposite the entry to there. So
I saw Jurassic Park in that cinema.
I saw the first RoboCop there.
Oh, nice.
It was
classics.
Really good.
Our colleague and best friend Colin is saying that he's pretty sure his work colleague Catherine knows you, Graham. Catherine Williamson.
Yeah, I know. I do know Catherine Williamson.
That's a small world.
Yes, well, she lives in Pittenweem actually. She works at college. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Colin works at the college in Dunfermline as well. So.
Well, I do know Catherine, and I know her husband Mark.
That's a small world.
It is a small world.
And Neil's chiming in saying that he's drinking a beer called Light Ness, which is one of the pales from Loch Ness Brewery. That's a really nice beer actually. I like the Loch Ness Brewery's logos. The N is the body of the Loch Ness monster, which is pretty cool.
I've noticed like when I go into like a local co-op or something, and I go into the sort of the alcohol bit, and I find it quite interesting looking at the different styles of the new sort of styles of labels on beer bottles and things these days. Trying to figure out the audience they're trying to appeal to, the design and everything. It's quite interesting though. There's some quite nice designs actually.
I've just moved on to this. Is it Weizenbock? A Weizenbock from. I got this in a box. So it's It's a German brewed beer. But yeah, so that's kind of like.
Oh yeah.
So like,
nice.
Obviously, when me and Colin started the podcast, it was because we had our local comic book shop had a beer shop open 2 doors down, so in the Maygate,
right.
and we often talk a lot about how during lockdown, when we couldn't actually go into the beer shop, it took a massive portion of the shopping experience away from us, because it is like going into an art gallery and then picking the pieces of art that are going to get you drunk later on. It's cool. Right. Will we move on to? So there's been quite a big week in stuff on in other medium other than comics. So we'll put a wee spoiler warning on for the stuff.
Association with Mark Abnett's inability to not spoil TV programs. It's time for Let's Try and Guess What's Happening.
Falcon and Winter Soldier. So a weird week for sort of comic book television. I know Walking Dead started again, but I don't watch it, so I'm not talking about that. But we had the Snyder Cut this time last week, and we also had my wife's laughing because we have a running joke about the word Snyder is quite funny in our household. But that's an in joke. That's an in joke, and I can't go.
Is this a Scott Schneider or something like that? Scott Schneider.
Well, right. I'll try and see if I can. Right, the stupid like jokes you have with your wife. So like,
Sorry.
Me and my son have always been talking. Me and my son have been talking about the Snyder Cut for months, and then Claire had a packet of pretzels last week. When I'd had a couple of beers last Friday, and Claire had a packet of pretzels that are called Snyder's pretzels. And I was like,
right.
Look who did your pretzels. And she just looked at me as if like I was talking absolute shit. I was. But so anyway. Yeah, the Snyder Cut came out last week. And then obviously
I presume you've seen it.
Yes. I saw the first, and it was the first episode of Falcon and Winter Soldier this week as well.
Yeah, so I know about these things. I haven't actually seen them though.
So was there a Snyder Cut?
Snyder Cut. I did about an almost hour and a half on my own channel of it. I managed to get sidetracked an awful lot, but I liked it a lot. I liked
so we're going to do 2 minutes.
Made.
We're going to do 2 minutes, and if you want to watch a further hour and a half, go and check out Andrew's other podcast.
Yeah, if you can check out my Facebook page, I've got the definitive Snyder Cut talk where we spent a lot of time not talking about the Snyder Cut. So.
It was fabulous. I thought is the word I would use. I thought it was tremendous. A totally different film. All the bits that I didn't like about the original.
I haven't seen the one that was released either.
Well, you don't need to.
You can completely miss that now. Yeah, just don't bypass that.
Because I've not even seen Avengers Endgame yet.
Oh, I'm so jealous.
I'm going to see it eventually. I will watch it eventually. But
there's a 20-minute sequence in Endgame that I think is possibly the best 20 minutes in cinema ever, and it's great.
That's arguable.
That's
a big claim.
That's a bold statement.
So Andrew, based on you've seen it, I want to say from if you could fast forward and then watch the 20 minutes from the moment that they decide they're going to fight Thanos, and then Thor does that. Are we going to kill him this time? And he goes, yeah. And he's like, okay, just making sure. And then he pulls out Stormbreaker. I think from that moment for the next 20 to 30 minutes is some of the best cinema ever made.
Okay,
there you go. That's my clue. Snyder Cut's great.
I will watch it. I've by and large, I've enjoyed the Marvel films. I haven't seen any of the sort of the more recent DC ones. My eldest son usually sees them because he's got a cinema right at the end of his street, and it's quite easy for him. And he gives me reports on them, But
The DC films are a much more mixed bag, I would say.
So I've heard, yeah. So I've read.
On reflection, none of them are overly terrible, apart from the original Justice League. But there's definitely flaws. I say Wonder Woman's a highlight, and Aquaman and Shazam are kind of up there.
Yeah,
but
I saw Wonder Woman, which I thought was okay.
Yeah.
But I sort of enjoyed the Marvel ones by and large. I mean, the the Avengers ones, and the whole build up to that. I was quite enjoying them.
I think based on your art style and what I know about your work, I think Guardians of the Galaxy fits your kind of comic style.
Oh yeah, they're quite good. I've seen those. Yeah, I enjoyed those.
But, Snyder Cut is it's like I don't know much about the way that Snyder planned his recut, but it does feel like there was an awful lot of hindsight involved, where he looked at what was going on with the original Justice League movie and went, right, what did they hate? And it's like he removed that before he added all the other bits in. But I don't know much about the actual. I imagine there's a whole movie in itself about this.
Most of the things that he hated were worthy of hatred. It was the things that Joss Whedon changed or put in to lighten the tone and go for cheap laughs and the bad CGI and things like this. It was worthwhile of getting rid of it. So even though it was 2 hours longer than the Joss Whedon cut,
4 hours.
It was probably an extra. It's a massively long movie, but you probably find there was only maybe an hour left of the original there, so it was like 3 hours of extra material. So it was a completely different movie.
Cost an enormous amount of money too, didn't it, to redo it? I mean, to re-edit it.
I think there was another 70 million. Was what they paid him.
Yeah, that's right.
70 million, yeah.
Sort of crazy.
Hopefully it'll make that, like, for them to put 70 million back into it. Hopefully they'll make more than that. And then it would have been a worthwhile venture.
They're obviously, that's what they're banking on, so to speak, isn't it?
I think they were committed to launching this HBO Max, and they needed a big, a tentpole release for it. And because coronavirus came along at the time it did, there wasn't any new movies being made. So, it was cheaper to do that. It was cheaper to spend 70 million on that than 200 million on a new movie.
Yeah, right.
And he only had to do small amount of reshoots for it. He already had all this material that was on the cutting room floor, so that's, I think, why they did it.
Okay,
of course, Restore the Snyderverse now is trending, that people not want more.
Yeah. I think folk, the one I saw is that folk now want to see the Justice League 2. They want to see the continuation of his dream, which I think is totally with merit, because it leaves itself open to so many awesome wee. But then I've also heard that the upcoming Flash movie is going to be a soft reboot anyway. So
yeah, I mean, Warner have said no more Snyder movies, but there is a rumor floating about they've got his scripts and possibly they're going to adapt them into comics so that you get the 3-part Snyderverse vision in comic form, which would work. It would do.
There was one niggly bit that annoyed me. I got annoyed that how Alfred, and this is like so niggly that I feel like shit even saying it, right? Because I did love the whole thing. I got annoyed that Alfred didn't do anything in the third act, like, because he had and that was the only thing that Joss Whedon maybe changed that I thought was maybe a positive change. I thought Alfred needed to be more involved because, but then there was a weird scene where like the Justice League are involved in the big battle, and then it cuts to Alfred and he's fixing a car, and it was just kind of like, why is Alfred doing that when he should be in Bruce's ear, And I just thought that was kind of odd. It was that was the only thing that annoyed me, and I was like, other than that, I thought it was quite good. Overly long, maybe a bit too long, but I like the chapter cuts. So I chapters over a couple of days.
I thought, apart from the epilogues, knowing now that we're not going to get any more content, we're not going to get the ones that were teased in the epilogues. We could have done with losing some of the epilogue now, because it just leaves me wanting more. But apart from that,
the Manhunter scene was quite funny, because I was kind of like, like you said.
The Manhunter scene was an unusual one because he didn't actually want to use the Manhunter for the scenes in it. He wanted to use Green Lantern, and he wanted to use John Stewart Green Lantern, and he'd even shot scenes where it was John Stewart's Green Lantern. But Warner Brothers wouldn't let him use John Stewart Green Lantern, partly because of the failure of the Green Lantern movie.
Yeah, I've never seen it. But was it any good?
The Green Lantern was absolutely panned. One of the worst superhero movies ever made.
Yeah, well,
at the time where superhero movies were really good, it was just shit. It was
just awful.
Yeah, it's not very good at all.
So that's part of the reason why they wouldn't want to use a Green Lantern.
Not long ago, though.
Say again, Graham?
There was something I watched not long ago that I thought was really good. Was the TV series The Watchmen?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought that was excellent.
The TV one, you know. It was. It was really good. Yeah.
It fleshed out the character, and I like that it was a sequel to the comics, not the movie.
Like 10 years later or something, wasn't it? More than that, 20 years ago. I can't remember. But
like
no, I thought it was good.
Thoroughly enjoyable.
It was quite interesting, really. I think I watched it not long before everything kicked off in the States after George Floyd was murdered and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it became very.
It seemed incredibly pertinent and timely.
Yeah. Well, you talk about like powerful moments in cinema. The first 10 minutes of the first episode of that about the cracking down and the race riots in 1918.
Also,
yeah, based on true events and
totally wrecked the black part of town, didn't it?
Yeah, and that was some powerful, filmmaking.
One of my wife has got friends out in Tulsa.
Absolutely, it was.
Yeah.
It was.
What was I going to say?
Sorry, I interrupted.
This is talking about television and race and stuff like that. Falcon and Winter Soldier came out this week as well.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Had a I enjoyed the first episode of Falcon and Winter Soldier, but based on what we've had with WandaVision, it felt much more back to. It felt like the first half an hour of a Marvel movie rather than the first part of a TV series. I enjoyed it, but it felt like they stretched out the first act of a superhero film a wee bit longer, in my opinion.
I think that's what they're looking for. That's what they're going for.
I guess you're right. I mean, again, obviously, I haven't seen it, but I've read about it, and what you're saying seems to sort of bear out what I've read, actually. But you're right, they're trying to sort of. I mean, I've seen some bloody awful stuff, actually. I mean, I don't know if you ever saw. I only watched like about one episode of it because it was so appallingly crap. The Inhumans.
We don't talk about that. It's so awful.
Yes, it's very bad.
I thought, the Inhumans, I watched that. It was awful.
We talked about that a couple
really
weeks
terrible.
ago. Yeah.
I thought really terrible sort of sets.
We talked about that a few weeks ago, Graham, and we mentioned about how like it was trying to. I think I talked to Andrew and Colin about it, and I was like, I don't understand. Like, I tried to watch it again. I was like, I don't actually understand who it's aimed for, because like you have this royal family who deliberately hold down their society, and you have this society that want to rebel against like perceived
injustices by the ruling class, the rich people at the top of society, controlling everything.
Well,
the royal family are the goodies. So you're like, I don't understand this. Like,
no, I think what you said a couple of weeks ago, it was absolutely tone deaf with what's happening in the world at the moment. But I think if you look at the first episode of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, they're trying to address this as well, because they're doing a similar thing where they've taken the shield away from the black man, who I don't want to give away too much of Endgame for you.
Don't worry about it.
So they've taken the shield away from Sam and given it to this blonde white boy, Aryan and
have traditional American values and stuff.
Yeah, and at the same time, Sam and his family are struggling to make ends meet and pay their mortgage, and they're right at the bottom of society. So
that's annoying.
Interesting to see where they go.
I'm not going to lie, because obviously I don't know that much about the financial difficulties of Sam Wilson's family, but it's like at post the blip, there's no such thing as crowdfunding. surely if the Falcon was like, look, I helped save the world a number of times.
Yeah.
Me and my sister need to pay for our...
We're going to lose our boat. Yeah.
Yeah. Our boat's about to get like taken off us because we can't afford repayments.
Yeah.
Please donate what you can. Surely the Falcon's going to raise like 6 figures on Kickstarter.
You think the Stark Foundation would step in and you know, Pepper was there and she would think,
yeah, that's right. You like The Boys, though? I watched the first season of The Boys, which I actually thought was
Boys
quite good.
is absolute genius.
Marvelous television.
Yeah, and that's a couple of guys who would have come through maybe slightly later than you, but come through the 2000 AD one and Garth Ennis and
Yes.
Derek Robertson.
Yeah, I've seen the comics, but I've never actually read them. But I watched the TV series. Well, I watched the first season, and I thought it was good.
Absolutely hilarious. I love them. I'm a massive fan.
Wow.
That's my Billy Butcher pop toy.
I would argue that the first season of The Boys is almost perfect in terms of actual just general television. It's really good. Season two is not as good, but at that point, they've established the characters so strongly.
Yeah.
See,
the Boys comic is like a scathing dissection of superhero comics and everything that's wrong with them.
Oh, totally. You know, which makes you think one of the comics I've really enjoyed over the last, it seems like quite a long time now because it's been going for a while, was The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, which I thought went out on a magnificent note. Personally, I thought the last volume of that was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, Alan Moore, I think he worked on that for so many years. He would do some and then go away, and a couple of years later he would do some more and stuff like this. So he wasn't under the pressure to have the story coming out every month.
No,
so the stories they waited until they were perfect, and they were by and large they were perfect.
And Kevin O'Neill's best work, I think, as well.
Yeah,
absolutely beautiful. Some of the work in it.
So, like the way one of my favourite Kevin O'Neill things that he did. I really liked how I don't know if it was him or Alan Moore that wrote this, but there was a really awesome bit in a lot of I liked it when there's one panel in particular when after one of their big battles where Jekyll has become Hyde and taking part in like this. The next time you see Jekyll, he's got, I can't even remember what it is now, but he's got his feet in like one of these like foot soak like tubs, and he's got like a hot water bottle, and like he's wearing a dressing gown, and he just looked knackered. And I remember always thinking, that's perfect. That's exactly how Jekyll would feel every time he hid out.
He would.
Yeah.
And I didn't know who chose to draw that, but I always thought that's a really amazing aside to the Jekyll character. I think absolutely.
Well, to imagine probably Alan Moore wrote it like that because I think he wrote well known for his incredibly detailed scripts, I think.
Yeah. That's absolutely right.
I'm just guessing here. I'm sure you can probably find out.
Yeah, I've seen, like, I've got the book of the making of Watchmen, and the notes, the copious notes that he would send to Dave Gibbons when he was doing Watchmen, describing almost every panel. At the start, he would describe almost every panel, and this is what he thinks is happening in this panel and things like this. And after a while, you'll know more about this than me being an artist, but after a while, the artist and the writer sort of came to in sync so that Dave almost knew what he was going to want without it having to be spelled out. But yeah, in the beginning, when he's working with somebody, I think he's known for being quite strict about what he wants.
I remember when Watchmen first came out, I was doing a job in Glasgow, and I used to go to a comic shop called Akka, run by John McShane, who you probably you might know of. Watchmen was the first sort of like mainstream comic that I got excited about that I felt excited about for years because actually go in there and say, "Is the new Watchmen in?" And it was quite unusual. It was definitely a breath of fresh air at the time.
Yeah, it changed a lot about comics. It changed a lot of comics. I think without Alan Moore, without Watchmen, you possibly wouldn't have had The Boys and things like that. It was hugely influential. I like the movie. Yeah, I'm a big fan of the movie.
Yeah.
More than Alan Moore does. Alan Moore thinks it's an abomination,
Well,
refuses to put his name to it. But
but he's like that with all the movies, isn't he?
he's like that with everything. I imagine him as just a grumpy old man living in a lighthouse or something like that.
Yeah, I recently, last year or the year before, one of my sort of early favorite comics to talk about in this podcast was there was a recent run of Peter Cannon Thunderbolt, and there was a really awesome it was about how the baddie that Peter Cannon was fighting was using the ability to traverse the multiverse for his nefarious plan. And at one point, Peter Cannon tries to traverse the multiverse to fight his enemy, and ends up stuck. And for one issue of this 5-issue run, he ends up stuck in England in a country pub in England in the 1980s, and the whole issue is 9 panels. It's a traditional 9-panel, and he's stuck in a pub, and he's trying, and it's amazing. I don't know if I'm doing it.
That does sound awesome,
he's stuck in this English pub trying to work out how he can get back into the fight. And there's an old man, a really grumpy old guy sitting at the bar who I think is supposed to be Alan Moore. And at one point, he gives Peter Cannon some really awesome advice. And then says and Peter Cannon's like, "You're a really wise man." And then the man's like, "Thank you. By the way, I'm drinking Belhaven Best if you want to sort me out." And Peter Cannon does that, and he's like, "Sorry, I don't have any pockets for money." And the Alan Moore guy puts his hands up in the air, is like, "Fucking superheroes!" And it's like, it's quite.
Well. Yeah, but I mean, you could sort of understand that, really. I think I mean,
I'm sure he's a super nice guy.
I'm sure.
He feels. He's well known. He's well on record for feeling that he's been harshly treated by DC, who've taken his work and run with it and things like that.
Yeah, well, they sort of have, haven't they? Let's face it. I mean, all right, okay. You go into these things, I guess, with your eyes open. In one sense, but there was some business, wasn't there, about the rights when they published it as a book or something, and that was sort of,
because they continue to publish. He doesn't know.
That's right, and they work their way down there in some way.
Well, I think DC's argument is that most of the characters in Watchmen were based on old Fawcett comics or Charlton comics characters.
The Blue Beetle and stuff, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I think originally he wanted to use these characters, the Question and the Blue Beetle.
Charlton comics, were they, or something?
Charlton, I think it was either Charlton or Fawcett, I thought. But DC wanted to retain the rights to those characters in case they wanted to use them at a later day. And they've used the Blue Beetle and things like that now. So Stretch Mentallo.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking at the clock, and I'm going to have to pull this to an end soon.
Okay.
We can do this all night. We do this all night, and when the pubs reopen, Graham, now that we know you're in Penguin, we need to organise something. There's a pub I need to work out where it is, but I think near you there's a really good craft beer bar that we can make plans to go and see. There was a few things I wanted to talk about before we went off air. We have, and coming up next week, and we have our event, which is the Brewgooders Live Beer Tasting Ticket event. It's a week tomorrow. It's the 2nd of April, and guests will get 6 beers and a number of comics, which I made a wee video for. Let me see if I can find it. I love my wee. This might be one. This is the wrong one. I'm sorry. No, this is the right one. These are comics for next week. Sorry. So for anyone that's like, what the fuck is going on? Next Friday for £20. There's only 6 tickets remaining though, so you have to grab them now. We are hosting an event where anyone that buys a ticket will be invited into a live Zoom call where myself, Andrew, Colin, and the brewers of Brewshed Brewing, Cool Brewing, and Beef Brewing, so 3 local Fife breweries, are you'll get 6 beers. The brewers will talk you through the tasting of those beers, and as you've just seen there, ticket holders will also get given a bunch of digital comics, which is pretty cool. All for £20, and all profits go to Chaz, which is the Children's Hospices Across Scotland charity. But yeah, so only 6 tickets left, and you've got a day to get them, and it's pay weekend, so
get them up.
Yeah, I'm actually doing the deliveries this weekend. Yuck.
Cool, you better my houseman, mate.
Yeah, I will. I think you're actually my last stop, in technically. I'm doing this mad circle that starts in New Mills and ends up in, I go as far as Glenrothes and then back
spin back round.
Kelty, yeah. Somebody, and then.
Oh, yeah. My friend lives in Kelty.
Doing the whole area.
Yeah, it's good. So I'm excited. I'm actually excited for a wee road trip with my kids, which is going to be quite cool. When we stop at McDonald's and stuff. But yeah, please join us. It's like a week tomorrow. There's only, in order to make sure that everyone gets their beers on time, we have to stop selling tickets. Like, I think I'm picking up the beers from Cool on Saturday afternoon. So if you don't have your tickets by then you're probably not going to get one.
I see.
There was something else I wanted to talk about. I wanted to talk about Colin Noble, who we were all really sad to hear that Colin, who is a bit of a legend, particularly in Fife and the comic scene, lost a battle of cancer today. And yeah, I don't know if Andrew, if you want to chat, because I didn't know Colin. I think I maybe met Colin once.
I do. I mean, yeah, Colin was a really well-known character in the comic scene in Fife. His knowledge of British comics was almost encyclopedic. He's, from the very early days of Victor and the Commando books, things like that, all the way through, the Eagle, 2000 AD, stuff like this. He just loved comics and he knew a lot about comics. He was a frequent visitor to my shop, buying and selling, and his family came in as well. Lovely guy. He helped me out a lot when I ran a convention here in Kirkcaldy a couple of years ago, and I was delighted. I hosted him that evening to a screening they shoot in Clark's at the cinema, which I did as a thank you to all the people who'd helped me out on the day. So yeah, I found out about this just before we came on air, literally 15 minutes or so. I'd like to say a big shout out to Colin's family. He'll be much missed. Yeah, I don't know what to say. He was a lovely guy, true gentleman. I'll miss seeing him in the shop. I'll miss chatting to him in the shop. And yeah, big loss to the local community.
I know that's why, for anybody that was wondering where Colin was, that's why we've not got Colin with him. I know him and Colin were really close. So yeah, massive loss. And I know you knew him as well, Graham, didn't you?
I did, yeah. I met him at a comics thing in Dundee, and as you so rightly said, actually gave me a lift home, and him and his wife and daughter came up for a cup of tea and everything, and then he came and had a look at some artwork and things like that, and we had a good chat, and I found him a very nice man, and a nice family as well. So he will obviously be sadly missed. It's a tragedy, really. I didn't know. I didn't find out. I didn't actually know until this evening. So it's as you say, it's a sad loss.
Yeah.
Our thoughts are with the family at this time. It's
Absolutely.
Crap. It's crap, but anyone does anyone have anything else they want to blare about before we go? Is there anything exciting happening? Anyone doing anything? Is that a rugby weekend, Andrew?
Yes, rugby. Scotland are playing tomorrow night in the finale. Basically, if we beat Italy, if we beat France even, Wales will win the Six Nations. If we lose,
are we okay with Wales winning the Six Nations?
Yeah, absolutely. It's absolutely fine for Wales to win it. If we lose, we have to lose, and Wales need to score 4 tries. They need a bonus point win against Scotland to seal the trophy themselves. So it's quite an interesting game, and I'm very much looking forward to it. So Scotland, we are playing football tonight as well. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what actually.
I'm in this wee football syndicate, and we all have to choose who we think's going to win and lose games this weekend. And the football season this weekend is weird because there's bizarre international friendlies this weekend, but then there's also the return to lower league football, which only happened last week, which is strange. Yeah,
I'm sorry to say that I know very little about football or rugby, so
that's all right. We never talk about it. It's just because Colin's not here to tell us to stop talking about shit.
Yeah. Colin would have had us off here 15-20 minutes ago. So, hi, Colin.
Yeah, we do miss you, brother, and we'll see you.
We do.
I'll see you on Saturday because I'm going to drop beer off at your house. Anything else, guys? We're quite happy to say good night.
Call it a day. Yeah.
Lovely. Cheers. And Graham, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Graham. It's a pleasure.
Okay.
And we need to grab you. You'll be on the show again.
It's been a pleasure. It's nice to sit and just talk about comics and stuff. It makes a change.
Yeah,
it's been lovely. And as soon as we're able to, we will have this conversation again in a pub somewhere along the.
Yeah, definitely.
Now that we know that you're local, we can.
Yeah.
That was far away.
The trouble is, I don't have a car, so I can travel obviously, but it usually has to be on a bus, which takes quite a long time.
We'll get a designated driver.
Yeah, don't worry. No, absolutely not. We did one of my favourite things ever was me and Colin did a beer when we first started the podcast. Me and Colin did a beer. We used to do these Brewgooders on tour episodes where we went to beer festivals and recorded from there. And we did one just outside of Kirkcaldy. What's the next village along the coast? That's not Kinghorn.
Anstruther.
Which way? This way. Come this way.
Towards your way. It's not as far as. Not as far as Leaving. It's literally the next. It's literally the next place on from Kirkcaldy.
From Kirkcaldy. Dysart.
Yeah, we went to the Dysart Beer Festival as one of our very first episodes, and and my wife amazingly organised someone to come and pick us up, but it was just totally random. I was sitting in the Masonic Lodge, quite drunk with Colin, and I was like, "Oh, one of my wife's friends' boyfriends is going to pick us up in about 15 minutes," and then we were minging in the back of this guy's car. So we can sort that out again. That's fine.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you something you guys will probably quite like. There's a place along here. It's like a big house with an estate called Cambo, and they have a beer festival. And they have it twice a year usually. Obviously, it's not been on this year, but they'll almost certainly be having another one, and it's really, really good. You'd like it.
It's a date, man. It's a date.
If it's on, we'll all meet up, and that'll be absolutely great.
Yeah, it'd be a good place. It'd be a good place to meet because it's not only if it's a nice day, they've got a nice garden and everything. It's beautiful. And I don't know if you have children or anything like that, but it's usually stuff on for kids to do and things. So
mine's are all grown up, so.
Mine.
Mine.
Yes, great. That's just good. Cool. Well, we'll get that planned. So much, guys. Thanks so much for your time, guys, and we'll see you later.
You're welcome. Thank you.